Hey everyone, we're back and we're better. This is Awakening Youniverse, episode number 5. I have not uploaded in a few months, and that's simply because sometimes I don't really find anybody that's aligned to come on the podcast. I remember that even back then, I was dealing with this issue of having trouble finding people. Oddly enough, I am currently doing a psychic mentorship, and when I asked her how, am I able to find more guests, she just tells me like, well, have you tried asking? I decided to go on Reddit, and I just sort of made a post, and people commented back, and one of them, the guest star that I have today, named Nikki, was soul shifter. So funny because it wasn't even her that commented under my post, it was her sister. So that was really amazing how spirit just kind of works and aligns you with the people that you need the most. But I'm very excited to bring you guys Nikki the soul shifter today. She is an oracle, she's a divine feminine, she is a healer. She's here to really change the structures here on earth and really bring in the new structures, which take time, they take patience, and they take revolution. She cannot have built these systems if it weren't for her breaking the mold and going down a path that was just a little singled out and a little bit where she couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes in this journey, you're not going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to believe that there's light on the other side. I hope that you guys enjoy this podcast episode. If you guys, want to check out any other episode that I have or anyone else, please do so. It's so interesting to see all the different stories and all the different ways that source has gotten into these people's lives. Here in Awakening Youniverse, we do not discriminate on religion or on beliefs. That is the number one thing in the platform to be based on. I don't care what your beliefs are. I always want everyone to have an open mind. If that's you, come and follow along on my episode. And if it's not you, I just offer you an invitation to just listen to it with an open mind. You never know what you'll learn. Another reason why it's taking quite a while to find a guest is because I'm still currently working through grief. Sometimes the grief comes in waves, and some days I'm okay, and some days I don't ever want to get out of bed. I thought I should share that because that way you guys can start to feel my energy and a little bit more about me. I realized I hadn't really shared much about who I am here on my podcast. I just kind of feel like people will naturally know me from TikTok, and I show more of myself on there, but for those that just freshly discover me on YouTube, you will not really know who I am. I'm going to shut up now, and we're going to get on with the episode.
My name is Nikki, better known as the Soul Shifter. I host guided meditations. I have a monthly community. I think trying to find the label so people resonate with what you actually do, I think is sometimes the toughest part. I'm a quantum healer, better known as the Soul Shifter. My clients actually gave me that name. I am a High Priestess. I deliver guided meditations, really just trying to help people on a journey back home to themselves. My mom was a teenage mom, so she had me, and then a week later she turned 18. I was the oldest daughter. She had 3 daughters, and I was the oldest growing up. I have a Cancer moon, so I am very nurturing and motherly, mothering my mother, mothering my siblings. I had custody of my siblings at one point, or one of them. So I grew up very traumatic. My life was one traumatic experience after another. I dealt with a lot of narcissism growing up. My mom always believed in God. We didn't really go to church. I was baptized. We had different time periods where we would visit church a little bit for short periods of time, but my mom didn't drive, so she was very dependent on who she dated. If they weren't church going and they didn't, then we weren't going either. But growing up, I was always very intuitive, very tapped in. I really was very empathetic. I think I really understood other people's emotion. 2017, I had my daughter, and I think she was a huge catalyst in my biggest spiritual awakening. Like I said, intuitive and kind of tapped in, but because of all the trauma, I think there was that disconnect. And then with my daughter, it was she ignited something within me. During COVID, during 2020, I was teaching. I was in a toxic marriage, and I think I just woke up one day and was just I want more for myself. I work so hard. I don't have anything to show for myself. I'm in this toxic marriage. I'm in this profession that just keeps dumping on me and dumping on me. They don't care that I don't have enough help or support. It was like I never had the support that I should have. And I felt like it was a disservice to the children. And so I was just in this place of like always being the nice girl, but not getting anywhere. And I think that when I left teaching, I was kind of on that island and really went through and did a lot of shadow work. And I think that that's kind of, what led me here. So when people were telling me I was crazy and delusional, I was trying to tell them like, oh no, my guides are telling me like I'm doing it. And they're just like, no, you're crazy. But that, was my journey. Like when I was teaching, I read this book, and one of the things that it said was what we don't heal gets passed down to our children. And I had just had my daughter, and I was a victim of sexual abuse growing up, and my mother was, it happened to my sister. So I could see this pattern in my family, and I was like, I will not let this happen to my daughter. And so I got really, really serious at that moment about healing, about really trying to break generational curses and things, like really just like becoming aware, and then just really trying to move through as much as I could, because I was like, I want my children to live a peaceful life. Mm-hmm. Which was the opposite of my chaotic upbringing, right? And so I'm like, if I can do that, then I feel like it would be the truest success, because I feel like when we live in peace, we thrive, right? And my kids are doing embodiment work and, breath work and yoga. We talk about building a toolbox. So like when life gets hard, we need a toolbox. And when life is lifing, go into your toolbox and grab what you need, grab something that works for you. And I try to teach my kids an array of different tools so that they can kind of tap into like what they feel like they need. Maybe this is something that I can kind of put together and help the parents. And because that was something that I grew up in a household that had like lots of yelling and domestic violence and chaos. And even though we don't want to perpetuate that, right? That's what we know. And it's kind of like our go-to. And I recognized, okay, when I get upset, my voice, I'm yelling, you know what I mean? Right. And so I said to my kids, and it more so is my daughter, because she's like testy. It was almost like she wouldn't respond unless I was yelling. So I used to tell her, I really don't like yelling. And I know that you don't like to be yelled at, because I don't like to be yelled at. I used to always look at my kids as like, if I was that 5-year-old child, like would I want my mom doing that to me? And I'd be like, no. And so I would have that mom guilt at nighttime, like, oh my God, I can't believe I yelled at her. And so I sat her down and I was just like, listen, I don't want to yell at you anymore, but I ask you to do things and you don't respond until I yell. So I need you to work on trying to hear me when I'm asking you nicely. And I'm going to work really hard on raising my voice. And I'm asking both of you to give me awareness, because sometimes I don't recognize in the moment that my voice is escalating. So if it happens, can you tell me? And so also like being able to like take, right, if your kids are saying, hey, you're yelling right now, you know what I mean? So I'm like, ooh, okay, thank you,
So awesome. You should definitely create templates, or at least help or tools for parents to be able to do that, to have those talks. And then also maybe for children to be able to receive, to be able to listen to their parents. So like, do it all, girl. Create templates for the kids, for the parents, for that guilt that you said you feel afterwards, because that's work also, right? It's like,
yeah,
it's like it's all releasing. So I'm telling you, this would be so amazing.
Thank you so much.
But you were saying,
I haven't worked with kids in probably 6 years. So for you to say it as I'm being asked to go kind of full circle and work with children, and then have a physical space to actually be able to do the work. So it's for me, I'm like, and I'm getting goosebumps. So I'm like, okay, full circle. Like, important to realize too that when you start progressing in your journey and you really start to look back, I can see how every job I had or every piece of my life really happened for a reason, or how it was preparation for what I'm doing right now. Let's start to think about, what we want our kids to learn. What do we need our kids to actually come out of school knowing, A lot of our kids don't come out of school knowing like how to do their taxes, or how to like have a or like how to cook. And so it's just like teaching them how to be human, right? And then like also I feel like it's so important to get back to basics. This world could not have so much control over us if we knew how to do things for ourselves, how to grow our own food. I'm an Aquarius, so like I have to know everything. I began this journey, and then 2020 hit, COVID hit, and I was really being pushed into this, and everyone was like, I can't believe you're giving up teaching. I really had to sit with it. I'm not giving up teaching, like I'm just teaching in a different way and teaching to a bigger collective at the same time. I feel like a lot of people in our field, or a lot of gurus, right? They're like, come to me and I have all the answers. Everyone has gifts, and just teaching people how to release what no longer serves them first, so that they can hone in on, their power, their gifts, and their mission, and what they're in service to do in this world. I feel like once everybody really taps into their own essence, they're like, I know what I'm here to do. And so I just am really trying to help people find themselves, especially after hitting like rock bottom. That's like my jam, because I really feel like everything happens for a reason. And I feel like our present life is always going to show us where we need to heal, where we have blocks. If we can kind of zoom out sometimes and not have that emotional attachment, we can really start to see things from like a higher perspective of like, okay, I see what the universe is trying to do here. I see what lesson I'm being taught right now. And it doesn't take away the human nature of it hurting, but we can really understand where we're being pushed. We almost like give ourselves permission, I feel like, to move forward, like to kind of connect the physical body with the deeper purpose of kind of what's going on spiritually or emotionally or mentally within the body.
Healing really needs to happen at the root core level, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, physically. You're looking at all of it. You're looking at the person, their life, their path, like how you said, you look at them and what do they need? What trauma do they have that specifically has molded them?
I taught kindergarten for 11 years, and I feel like it was such a safe place for my inner child to come out. A way for you to tap back into, your innocence and your inner child. And then we come back into the world, right? Our truest essence. And then, our vibration is felt, right? And then I feel like it's easier to guide people because they can feel, right, that we did the inner work, or that we know what we're talking about. I do have this like creation type of drive with me. But
I think children have a lot to teach us.
They provide like such an authentic self to just show up like without judgment. And it's funny because, I taught kindergarten, so, they're young. And one Friday we were doing calendar, and I ended up doing like a Finally Friday dance. And so it became like a staple, like every single Friday they were like, you need to do that dance. And then it was like, actually, like I like doing the dance. You know what I mean? Like I love dancing. I feel like for a lot of people who have experienced trauma, there's disconnection from the body, right? It's like in that moment, our body is like, it's not safe to be here. And I feel like as we get older, we don't realize that we're disconnected, and then life keeps us really busy, right? It's really hard to carve out time for yourself. And I feel like in 2020, my spirit team was kind of like, okay, I want you to take this leap. When you take this leap, we're going to catch you and everything's going to be fine. And I felt like I was seeing, the signs of like, okay, everything's going to be fine. And so I left teaching, and I was like, okay, I trust you. And then they put me in like a 5-year bubble where I had to do like 5 years worth of shadow work. And they were like, okay, we were being honest, but what we didn't want to tell you is that it was actually going to take some time. It wasn't going to be overnight. I feel like my journey has been a lot of, at the beginning, you mentioned taking on, a spiritual, a mental, physical approach. And it's funny because I was working one-on-one with clients and doing Reiki. And after about like 2 years, I started to ask myself, like, what do you actually do with people? Like when you really, and so I sat down and I was, cleaning, and I'm like, I had like notes and I'm scribbling, and I wrote down a W, and I'm like, whole body wellness. I'm like, yeah, because I talk about the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual body. And then I'm like, oh, healing. Obviously, I talk all about healing. And then I'm like, ooh, authenticity, and like I'm really into like human design and astrology and like getting to know your true self. And then I've done a lot of mindset work, so I write down M, and then I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, wham, I'm like, oh, I like that. Realizing that like I kind of have this framework, this wham philosophy that if a client comes to me and they have a physical ailment, I'm going to take that healing piece, right? So we're going to look at, their present life and their shadow aspects and their what goes on like ancestrally and generationally and things like that. But then when we're looking at the healing, it's like we're going to heal on that W, right? So we got to look at what physically does the body need in order to heal? Like what mentally is going on? What stories are we telling ourselves about said illness, right? Or, what's going on emotionally? What does that really carry? Because I really feel like the emotions are just like informational downloads for our like computer of a body. And then spiritually, it's like, what's that bigger lesson that, our soul is trying to learn? The Aquarius in me gets so upset, right? That like, we're not learning this stuff at school and, our children, and in my classroom, I used to teach, my kindergartners about like their chakra system. And I had like a diffuser in my room and I had a selenite wand. So like, it was a joke, but like, when their energy was off, I'd be like wanding them down, and clearing their energy. And my principal came in one day and she's like, does anybody ever say anything to you? And I was like, no, like everybody loves my classroom. The printer was in my room, so it had a lot of traffic and everybody always said they loved being in my room. But it goes to show you that you can set in an environment. I just think it's really important that, we're teaching this newer generation. I think you touched on how we both have that, that child, but also like that mother working. And I really feel like it's because I'm 40. So I feel like my generation is having children and realizing like I need to heal because we can see through our children. I was probably one of the first people to really listen to my children from the very beginning. We do things differently in my house and I've gotten a lot of flack for it. I homeschool my kids, but it's what they wanted and they were asking. And so it caused, a lot of ripple effects within our family and things like that. But, for me, it's like I'm always going to listen and try to put their needs first because I really truly believe that they know what's best for them. My niece came over and she's like, you ever see ghosts? I see ghosts all the time. All of a sudden, so for like 30 minutes, she was like, yeah, I see old people, young people, and just like nonchalant. And I was just like, oh, really? Like, do they scare you? Like, how do you feel? Like, I'm just, letting her talk. But I don't feel like she is able to have those like free conversations in other places. She came downstairs and it was just like, okay, we're talking about this now.
That is so cool. I seriously love that you allow kids to have a safe space for that. It's really important. I was gonna say, when you go against a mold in society, especially the school system, I mean, everyone looks at you very funny, for sure. You know what I mean? I loved how you were saying you had like a selenite wand. You tried to make the classroom vibes as safe, as healing as possible.
Sometimes we do things and we don't realize like we're doing them or we have that gift. I have a lot of friends that are psychics and intuitives. And one of my friends, I was on the phone with her and I was talking to her, and she was a former teacher as well. I was talking to her about one of the boys in my class who used to give me the hardest time, but like I loved him. It was so funny. I'm on the phone with her and she's like, that boy in your class, which she has no idea what he looks like, And so I'm like, I know exactly who she's talking about. And she was she's like, his father passed away. And she's like, you channel his father all the time. She's like, when you get down on your knees, and you talk to him at eye level, she's like, you're always channeling his father when you do that. And I was like, I didn't know I was doing that. Kindergarten had all these expectations of, what they needed to do. And it's like, okay, first, like, let's just make sure that like you're good first. We would do like little things too. Like I would teach them like a waterfall technique or like a protect their energy or to release, or just trying to give them like little tips and tools. And my school was actually really blessed to have a yoga instructor come in for like a 6-week period. What? So it really tied into the work that I do. So I kind of piggybacked. So we would do yoga and then we would meditate a little bit, and we wouldn't really call it meditation, but we would just like sit quietly. I think teaching people that stillness, like this world just keeps us so busy, which keeps us in survival mode. And so in order to get back into the body, we really need the embodiment. Mindset stuff is really important, but we have to make our body feel safe again to fully be able to be an oracle or be a channel or be a guide for others, you know, because it's like our channel needs to be open.
When you're trying to follow up on the wisdoms, like when you're trying to implement them, you do have to feel safe in your body. Otherwise, try as you might, it's going to be hard for you to really go out there. You could have all the wisdom, you could know your mission, but if you're not safe in your body, if your mind, your body still will not move, it's on freeze, it's hard for you to move and implement your knowledge and get out there and show your skills and heal people like you're meant to. So I absolutely agree. Your body, how you feel is like the number one priority.
I have a monthly community called the Soul Shifter Revolution. The first step really is to help the collective start healing. But my second and really my bigger vision is to really start to change laws and really start to change the ways that we do things and change the systems. And so like we kind of touched on how I kind of had to fight back against the education system. I've spent like the last 6 years in court with my daughter's father and custody and that kind of stuff. So I've been like fighting the legal system as well. And so I feel like as an Aquarius, I'm just like, these systems all need to change. And I can see it like the healthcare system. I just shared a story on my Facebook about how someone in my town, basically, he passed away. He was homeless and he froze to death. And it just like hit me. No person should have to go without food or housing, those basic needs, or earn in order to, that really gets like my system going. And so I'm just like, no. And I feel like being the underdog, I feel like I know what it's like working with people in poverty and seeing how the system keeps people in the system. I feel like just has ignited something like within me that I'm just like, this needs to stop. And so during my journey, I was very serious about my healing journey. I would see shamans and different things, and I was spending a lot of money. But when things got crazy at court and I didn't have the money, it's like all of my healers basically were like, bye, you don't have money, I'm not helping you anymore. And they kind of all ghosted me. I'm like, most people that need this work are not millionaires, you know what I mean? They're the people that are struggling. And so my community, even though I could offer it for, you know, $100 a month or tier it even higher than that, it's only $5 a month. I really want everyone in this world to be able to have access to have that lifeline, right? Of not feeling like they're alone, because it's like a lot of people are at that rock bottom, a lot of black sheep, like they're alone, they're the only one, they're unsupported. And so I'm like, no, black sheeps, come together, like come home. I feel like it's really important for people to take responsibility for their own healing journey and knowing that like, yes, I can be a guide, but it's like, I'm not the healer. I'm not here to heal you. I'm here to help you learn how to heal yourself. Because I noticed when you don't do that and you do not have healthy boundaries, it also is very depleting too on your own energy, where you're like trying to literally help everyone and everyone's pulling at you and you're like, okay, now I'm exhausted and I can't do anything I need to do for myself.
Spirit will make healers learn boundaries first.
One of the workshops that I teach that I'm really passionate about it's called Death of the Nice One, but it really talks about the dynamic between an empath and a narcissist, and how an empath will attract a lot of narcissism in order to learn healthy boundaries and to be able to kind of like go through that journey of selfless to selfish back to selfless, you know, and sometimes you can feel really stuck in that dynamic. So in the workshop, I talk about how we fall into that character or that role of the nice one and what it means and kind of the dynamic between the empath and the narcissist and how it helps us become like an empowered empath. And then I offer like energy work and things like that to kind of help cut cords. It's really important that people really understand that, you know, when we have those periods of isolation, it's usually for elevation. So it's like there's something going on there that we need to kind of work through. Spirit puts us in timeout and they're like, okay, like go sit in the corner, figure that out so you can progress. I have a whole healing hippie line too. So I make a lot of physical products. I make a lot of holistic alternatives and things like that, and skincare. How my business started was through the Healing Hippie Co. because my son had allergies, and I'm like, we're not doing allergy medicine every day. So I started researching essential oils and herbs and shamanistic kind of things. I was doing that, and then I was doing the Reiki training and the energy work, and then, you know, the coaching and then mentoring. Things kind of just snowballed. Kind of love to help people like wherever they're at, and the community is the best place, I think, for people to get the most, like, or the biggest bang for their buck. But the community is definitely my focus.
It's funny because you being an Aquarius makes sense that you're very community focused, and it's like you were meant to be born for you to go into these systems in the community, personally yourself. And I love that because that's actually what Aquarius does. Like, you guys are just, oh my God, by the way, I love Aquarius.
What's your sign?
I'm a Pisces, and that's why.
Oh, okay.
Because we're just like the ones that are always outside. Like, honestly, those are probably the two signs that are mostly just kind of like outcasts. There's going to be so many people in your life that are going to tell you what to do, what not to do, simply because they didn't think of it themselves first. But you did, and you're doing it first. So just go ahead and do it. Everyone is here for their own special purpose. We have our own skills, and we're not going to tap into them if we're following other people's advice or purpose.
You know, my daughter, we talked about how intuitive our kids are. My daughter, she's 8. And since she was 2, she's been saying to me, like, you know, you're meant for stages, Mom. You're going to be on a stage one day. And I'm like, no, I don't be like, that's scary. And now I'm like, okay, I see what you mean here. But there was such a fear there. And I received like so much flack. My younger sister like said to me the other day, she's like, I'm really sorry because I don't even know mentally how you're still here. All the stuff that you really had to go through, I don't honestly know how you did it. I think it was the first time that someone has really acknowledged the betrayal, the heartbreak, feeling like I was on my own island. And it's just like, I just wanted someone to say, it's okay to be you. We're going to love you anyway. And it's funny because it's like now people are copying and mimicking what I'm doing, like within my family and things like that. And it's like, at first I was crazy and delusional, but now it's like everyone's following the leader over here.
The life story of an Aquarius. That's Aquarius in a nutshell. People copy you. They copy you after they realize you were right.
Yes.
So it's okay.
And I love that you were telling the audience, this is going to happen, but like, don't let it deter you. Do not let it stop you. You're so powerful, especially if it takes a lot of people to try to bring you down. You must hold a lot of power within you if it takes an army to try to bring you down, and they still can't. I think people need to really give themselves like credit because, you know, I think we are our worst critic a lot of times, and to just give ourselves grace and like love and forgiveness and understanding of like what we went through, and like it's okay to make mistakes, right? And like learning how to reparent yourself, like when you do make a mistake or when you are going through it or you feel triggered. I used to say to myself all the time, if you really are here to be of service and you're afraid to speak your voice, get out of your own way. I would tell myself, like, you are not allowed to be afraid and put yourself in a corner when you know people need your medicine. Like you said, it's okay to stumble. It's okay to crawl. It's okay to take baby steps and following those breadcrumbs, because it's like, that's what spirit does. A lot of times it gives you those little breadcrumbs because they know if they were like, hey, you're going to change the world, you know, you'd be like, what, me? I'm not here for that.
I'm nobody. Like the egoic mind just will not. So honestly, your story, spirit has to do it in tiny steps.
Even if I have to be a little afraid, or like even if I'm doing it when my voice shakes, we have to not only do that, but empower other people to do it too.
I have a couple of friends online on TikTok, and some of them, you know, kind of struggle putting themselves out there and step out there and be seen. Can you give them any advice on maybe, you know, how they can overcome that?
People in the collective have a throat chakra block. And so the throat chakra is your voice and speaking your truth, but it's also your truest essence, your authenticity. When we can really hone into who we are and we can be our true authentic self, it's almost like our frequency is like a beacon of light. And people who need us can like see us, they can feel us, and it pulls your clientele to you because they're like, ooh, like they might not know what it is about you and it might not be exactly what you're sharing. It's like your energy, right? Speaks for itself. So the more that you can show up and be your true self, when we were talking about the community, like that was a huge thing for me. Like it was devastating to me that these people that I thought I had built really close connections with and relationships with, they just kicked me to the curb when I didn't have money. So I really had to sit with like, what kind of leader do I want to be? What kind of healer did I need? And how can I show up as her? You know, that was really what prompted the community, because I felt like, first of all, people need more than like a one and done session. Sometimes people think I'm nuts because I'm dancing in my kitchen in my sweatpants. I've got headphones on and I'm like putting messages on my social medias. I've had people reach out to me and be like, oh my gosh, you're so self-centered. Like you're just looking for attention. And I have other people that reach out and they're like, oh my God, your content is like saving my life. You're inspiring me. It's really important that if you're a creator, that you're creating what you feel called to do. I realize that like, my medicine is triggering. And so it's like, people are either going to be triggered and they're going to love it. And so that really helped me release the fear of judgment, release like that fear of persecution that maybe we've held in past lives too.
Yeah, a lot of
because
women
it's
have
like,
those wounds, I've noticed.
Exactly. And those are all throat chakras. So it's being able to open your throat and then really tie into your sacral, where I think is where women hold all their power, versus the solar plexus. We can birth things. How powerful is that? If we can birth babies, we can birth frequencies. We can birth new systems.
We
can birth.
timelines.
Exactly.
We healed. By healing, women birth new timelines.
Exactly. And like, it's like, that's the power that I want to help women remember that they carry and they hold. It's weird because like before it's like I needed money. I was like really financially struggling. And I was in this, I call it like my sacred stripping, where it was like I just lost everything basically. And it was like a complete ego death. But it was during that time I really learned I was healing a self-worth wound, because our money is always connected to our worth. I was giving myself permission to show up as my true self and say that energy is worth currency too. I would have people reach out to me and like, well, if you were a real healer, you wouldn't charge people for your gifts. Do you go to, any place and receive a service and don't pay for it, And so why should I don't need to be a wounded healer anymore. I want to be a sovereign healer. Like, I think that was part of my journey too, is like in the beginning, I really wanted to just help the collective. And it wasn't until I pulled myself all the way back and really started the embodiment work for myself and practicing what I was preaching, where like everything started to shift. Then people could feel the difference within me. And then it was like, I see what she's doing here. Now I'm understanding like what she's talking about, because I can feel the difference in her. I think if we move too fast in our masculine energy, sometimes we miss the mark, because our feminine energy is that rest, that pullback, that intuition. If we're constantly in hustle mode, then we lose that rest, we lose that divine self. So it's like we're working harder for no reason. And that's part of that sovereign return, is like knowing rest is power. When we allow ourselves to rest, that's when we can pivot. That's when clarity comes in.
I know we're talking a lot about the divine feminine, but really we have both energies in us. We have both divine feminine and masculine, no matter if you're a man or a woman. But we're specifically talking about divine feminine. The divine feminine currently is rising in the collective, and it's being talked about for the last few years now, but as we should, because the divine feminine has been suppressed, and it's time that we rise so we could heal the masculine as well. Because if we rise, they rise. We're teaching the men how to do it for themselves with their inner divine feminine. And women are showing the men outwardly, hey, this is how you do it. You do it through healing, through rest, channeled information from source.
And we're shifting into the age of Aquarius. The collective is in the biggest shift that they've ever seen. There is this awakening within men and women of that divine feminine energy. Almost like the earth was like, wake up! It's time to come back to life. It's like, I think when we talk about heaven and hell, I feel like they're more of a frequency, a state of being, than a destination of like where we go when we die. I talk to my clients all the time about like how we come to earth for earth school, for our soul's growth. We come here to learn lessons so our soul can grow. right now we're living in hell. We're living in that disconnection. We're living in suffering. We're living in starvation, and learning how to move on that path of enlightenment. Jesus was teaching us that Christ consciousness that's coming back to life, right? So it's really like the collective is being asked to remember how magical they are and how divine they are and how they are a reflection of source. Daily routine is so important because, the world is always so loud. And if we can come back to our quiet place and we can create this inner sanctuary where we can hear the messages, where we can hear the guidance, we don't feel alone. People are like, this girl's crazy. Like, what is she doing? She's delusional. But I knew that my inner world was what I was working on. And I knew my outer reality was going to eventually catch up. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I tell the universe I'm demanding this and this is what I know to be true, it's like the universe has to respond. You know what I mean? And so I think if I would have listened to people and would have really stopped doing what I was doing or what I felt like I was being told to do, I feel like I wouldn't be where I was. It's so important that we stay true to who we are and what we know to be true and what we're really being guided to do. I feel like that's where the real magic and the shifts happen, because spirit just wanted to know, do you trust yourself? Do you believe in yourself? Mm-hmm. And then the minute you're like, yeah, I really do, they're like, okay, here you go. Here's all the things you've been asking for. And you're like, wait a minute. That's all I had to do. I'm huge on community and I'm huge on working smarter. So if you live in a city, you don't have to have a whole garden. Talk to a couple of your neighbors, agree on like, hey, you grow these 3 things, I'll grow these 2 things, you grow this, and share, mm-hmm. right? So we don't all have to have a garden, mm-hmm. but we can create a huge garden if we all work together. And so just like little things, right? And I think that will too go back to the bigger thing of like the system of people not having to earn food or shelter. You know what I mean? Those should be basic needs that every human should have a bed to sleep in at nighttime and food in their stomach. When there's no reason why this world can't get it together. And it's like, there's no reason why somebody should have $85 billion and then this other person is literally dying at nighttime in the cold because they don't have a home to sleep in. There was a lot of things that were happening financially that were kind of out of my control. I don't think a lot of people around me really understood that it was like out of my control or that there were things happening. So for them, it was kind of like, wow, this girl's a loser. Like, she was a teacher, she left teaching, now she's like over here struggling and she's choosing to do that. I am very, very dedicated to like my mission and my purpose, but I would have these little moments where I'm like, okay, reality is hitting. Like, I need a job. I need to figure out how to make more money. And every single time I would try, the universe would do something where it would like literally roadblock me and I would not be able to get a job. And it was really frustrating because I'm like, I need the money. And if I have the money, it will take me out of my situation. People were kind of at the time saying like, hey, you're not doing things the right way. And look at your life. It's proof that you're not doing things the right way. I would go back to my spirit team and I'm like, okay, listen, you told me to take this jump. You told me that you were going to catch me. You told me everything was going to work out. I see that you are not allowing me to get a job. They were like, we're making an example out of you. They were like, we want people to know your story. We want people to know your struggle. We want people to know that if like you can do it, they can do it. And it was kind of crazy at the time because the harder I tried to make money, it was like I was pushing money away. I couldn't make money to save my life. Like, the more that I retreated into my divine feminine energy, the more that I was like, you know what? Like, my energy is really powerful. My energy will be the magnet. It was like money started floating to me out of nowhere. People would reach out to me and be like, hey, do you offer readings? Can I send you some money? Can you just pull some cards for me? And I've been posting for 6 months every day that I offer card readings and nobody else has asked me. And it's like the minute I stepped out of that toxic masculine energy of like, I have to do, I have to earn, I have to perform. And I went into my feminine energy of, it was like, I'm enough. my work is enough, my gifts are enough. It was like, then it was like I started attracting really easily. I think the biggest thing that I really had to learn was to truly listen to myself. I think having so many people telling me like, don't trust yourself and don't listen to yourself, it made me want to double down even more, because it's like I knew what I was doing. I want to live over here where people can see my value and see my worth, you know? If people don't, then that's really a them problem, I learned. And I feel before I used to like internalize that a lot, or how can I show up? How can I show them more of myself? Or how can I explain more of myself to people?
How can I make them understand?
Yeah. And then I just realized that like, those are just not your people. That's spirit's way of showing you who's not meant for you.
Nikki, is there anything that you'd like to say before we go?
Work is slow work. We really have to be compassionate and graceful, giving with ourselves as we're going through things, because it does take time and it doesn't happen overnight. Giving yourself grace and loving yourself where you're at, you're transforming, is amazing. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to just share my voice and show up today. So thank you so much.
I hope you guys take that last piece of advice, because that's very true. Just have compassion for yourself on this journey and have fun with it. I will see you guys next time, hopefully for episode 6. As always, follow Nikki on her social medias, which will be linked down below. Hope you guys have a great magical evening. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.